Hey guys, Darcy here, and today we're going to talk about whether or not you should sell your Apollo. Let's get into it. As we all know, since UAD Spark has come out, the Facebook groups, the Reddit threads, they've been going off about the conversation about the value of Spark. Some people love it, some people have controversial views on it. Personally, I love it. More options are better. I have a video on that, link up there, check it out. One of the questions that came up in Reddit that I'd answered for somebody to help them out is whether or not they should sell their Apollo. And for me, this goes down to the question you have to ask yourself, why did you get it in the first place? For myself, I wanted to record and track with real-time processing. I wanted to be able to add some kind of preamp, and mostly I really at the time wanted to add a compressor to pre-compress the stuff on the way in like an analog workflow, so that when I would start mixing, things would already be at a good starting point. Originally, I was using a much older computer and I really wanted to offload some of the work on the way in. And I just also really liked the fact that when you recorded through some kind of saturation, some kind of compression, that your stuff would actually start to sound like it fit in the track better, versus sometimes when you record just through a basic preamp and a basic interface, you get a very, I want to say just a sound that doesn't feel like it fits in the track very well, and makes you want to sometimes re-record things because you're like, oh, it doesn't sound good. It's like, no, it will sound good once I add these other plugins, but naked, it just didn't sound quite right. Really, if you got your Apollo for recording purposes, for real-time monitoring and recording, either you want to compress on the way in or you just want to hear it compressed, you just want to hear it with reverb in your ear, then you got it for the original and the correct reason. For example, I was in the studio recording with an artist and we wanted to add some kind of flavor to the recording. We added a flanger that we were just monitoring for this artist. The flanger was on a default setting. It was nothing special. However, what it gave to the artist, hearing that in real time, just allowed that individual to really go deeper into their performance. And for myself, listening on headphones, I was just so enamored with what I was listening to, I forgot I was actually recording. After she was done singing, I forgot to stop recording for like 8 bars because I was just like listening to a song from my perspective, forgetting I was in the room with the artist. And that kind of experience just can't really be emulated unless you are doing something that has that real-time aspect. I'm not saying that there aren't other hardware options to achieve this. By all means there are, but in my opinion, this package works well for me. One little device, so many different flexibility and ways to approach it. I personally haven't seen another option that I feel is as complete as this, but I'm not saying there aren't other options. But even in mixing, I personally still have use for this. I have my Apollo and my satellite, and I like to offload a lot of like auto-tune and heavy processing to those because I find that my plugin of auto-tune, which I have through Apollo, I don't have the CPU version of auto-tune. I have other CPU auto-tuners, but the actual auto-tune is with Apollo, and I find that just sounds cleaner than other ones that I work with, so I tend to offload it onto the DSP to ensure I have more CPU headroom. Again, as I had an older computer before, now I have a MacBook Pro, M1 Pro. Before I had a 2012 iMac. When I had that, because I was CPU poor, I definitely wouldn't want to overload heavy processing stuff onto the CPU. And I still kind of use that mindset because even though I have lots of CPU headroom, I like the ability to say, take Soothe and make it a 4x Ultra setting, which uses a ton of CPU and will actually almost you'll jump like 50% out of nowhere. But I like to allow myself that if I get later in the mix and, client asks this and asks for that and asks for this other thing, and I got to duplicate a bunch of tracks and add a bunch of plugins, that I have so much headroom that I won't all of a sudden in the middle of trying to be creative have to make, technical decisions around CPU resources. I like to leave myself open for things and, put things on DSP. I mean, as well, there are still tons of DSP plugins that are not part of Spark yet, so it's not even an option. But if you were to ask me, okay, well, should I just wait for all of the plugins to become, part of Spark? There's two problems with that. One, not every plugin's coming. I don't think they're going to put every plugin, and I think that they're going to probably introduce new plugins that may be Spark only. So you're not going to get like a one-to-one match. Now, how much of their catalog will come over? I think it's going to be all of the things that they don't have a licensing problem or a conflict of some kind of sort. I personally think that Autotune would be kind of at conflict because there's already a CPU version from the company that makes Autotune. There's also plenty of plugins that they might not port just because there's no real money. It's not really enticing to say, oh, I gotta go get that subscription. The other problem is that for you, it's a loss of time. If you decide, oh, I'm gonna wait to get this or, get the other thing, when they put everything on, what if that takes 2 years? What if in those 2 years you could have upped your game for what you are doing if you had gotten this hardware or you gotten that subscription? If you do know you need something, you do know it's going to improve your workflow, you do know it's going to actually benefit you, and you're not just clout chasing or buying the hottest gear. Waiting 6 months is 6 months of you not improving, you not adding more value to your clients because you were waiting for something that you knew you needed, but you were waiting for the optimal time. Opportunity loss is a big problem. Anyways, hopefully you found this all helpful. Let me know as well what your thoughts are. What do you agree with, what you disagree with, or whatever. Just, want to ask me how my day is going? Ask me that as well. Anyways, hopefully you have a good day, and peace.